I'm Clara Vance. I'm 27. For most of my life, my parents treated me like I was invisible, the quiet one, the one who'd never quite keep up. My sister, Alara, was the star. She got the private tutors, the standing ovations, and my father's promise of an inheritance. I got their pity and a job in the mailroom of the family business. But on the night of Alara's lavish engagement party, at a penthouse overlooking the city, a man I'd never seen before slipped me an envelope. Inside was the key to a secret that would shatter my family's empire and reveal that the person they'd dismissed, as the slow one, was the only one my grandmother ever truly trusted. The Vance name carries weight in this city. Hospitals, scholarships, a cornerstone of old New York society. My father, Arthur Vance, runs Vance Holdings, a real estate portfolio my grandmother, Cordelia, built from a single hardware store in 1962. Today, it's worth well over $100 million. My learning difference wasn't diagnosed until I was 9. Words on a page would blur, twist, and dance, making reading a slow, agonizing process. My parents didn't see a child who needed a different approach. They saw a flaw. My sister Alara, 2 years older, was everything they wanted. At 14, she had a private art tutor from the Met. At 16, it was a college admissions coach. When I asked for help with my reading, my mother, Victoria, would just pat my hand and say, "Clara, darling, we've tried. Not everyone is built for books." I was 9. I believed her. But my grandmother, Cordelia, saw things differently. Every Saturday, I'd escape to her townhouse in Gramercy Park. She wouldn't hand me a textbook. She'd tell me stories about the buildings she'd acquired, drawing maps on napkins, explaining the flow of money and power like a fascinating game. She taught me that vision isn't about reading words, it's about reading the world. "Clara," she told me once, her voice a low, knowing whisper, "the world praises the fastest reader, not the deepest thinker. You process differently, but you see the whole board. You see the connections, the hidden currents. That's not a weakness. It's a rare kind of sight." I didn't grasp the full weight of her words then, but I would. Christmas Eve, 3 years ago, our family's estate in the Hamptons. 40 guests, a 12-course meal, and the annual Vance family performance. My father stood, crystal flute in hand. "I have an announcement that fills me with immense pride," he boomed. "Alara has just been made a junior partner at one of the most prestigious art law firms in the world. She is the future of the Vance name." The room erupted. My aunts rushed to embrace Alara. My uncle proposed a toast. Then my father's eyes landed on me at the far end of the table. "And Clara," he said, his smile becoming a thin, tight line. "Well, Clara is here." A few awkward chuckles. Alara, basking in the glow, didn't even glance my way. I focused on the ice melting in my water glass. A hand, thin and warm, found mine under the table. My grandmother, Cordelia. Her eyes, sharp as flint, were fixed on her son. She squeezed my hand once, then let go. She didn't speak. But that night, something shifted in the air between us. She called me to her townhouse 3 months later. "I need to show you something," she said, her health already fatting. She showed me old ledgers from the company's early days, not to read, but to see. "Your father," she said, "sees a contract as a weapon. I see it as a blueprint. And you, Clara, you see it the way I do. You see the architecture." That same day, she pressed a small, heavy iron key into my palm. "Keep this safe. Don't use it yet. The right time will find you." I put the key in a jewelry box and tried to forget its unsettling promise. Graduating from a public university, not an Ivy, I was offered a position at Vance Holdings. My starting salary, $38,000 as a file clerk. The same month, Alara joined as a consultant. Her starting salary, $250,000. I spent my days organizing documents, fetching coffee, a ghost in the corner office. I was invisible, but I listened, and I watched. I realized my brain, the one they considered slow, was actually a pattern recognition machine. I could map out the relationships between investors and contractors just from overheard conversations. The skill I developed to navigate my own mind was, as my grandmother predicted, a superpower in disguise. A superpower that would soon be needed. In late 2020, my grandmother's health took a final turn. I was the only one at her bedside. The iron key stayed in my jewelry box. She died 3 days later, and the family story of Cordelia Vance, the brilliant founder, was quickly replaced by the story of Arthur Vance, the worthy successor. April 2024. The email was brutal in its brevity. Position elimination. My job was being cut for operational efficiency. I'd be gone in 60 days. I was cleaning out my desk late one evening when I heard voices in my father's office. He was with my mother. "She can't stay," he was saying. "When Alara takes a more active role, it'll look strange. The CEO's other daughter as a clerk. People will talk." "What would they talk about?" my mother asked. "Why she is more, why she's different. We've done everything we could, Victoria. Some people just don't have the tools." His words were a knife. I stood there, my hand pressed against the cold wall, and for the first time the frost in my chest wasn't just sadness. It was resolve. If I let them do this, I would be their failure forever. I wasn't a failure. I'd just never been given a chance. Alara's engagement party was the next day. The top floor of the Vance Tower. 300 of New York's elite, dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. I wore a simple black dress, the best I could afford. My mother intercepted me at the door. "Clara, there you are, table 22 near the kitchen. And please, tonight is Alara's night. Don't draw any attention." From my table, partially hidden by a pillar, I watched the performance. My father gave a speech, announcing Alara's new role and to thunderous applause that she would inherit his entire estate, and upon his retirement, the CEO position of Vance Holdings. My sister, radiant in red, soaked it in. I was just a spectator. Then I noticed him, an older man in a charcoal suit standing by the exit. He wasn't eating, wasn't talking. He was just watching me. After the speeches ended, he began walking towards my table. He stopped in front of me. "Ms. Vance, my name is Philip Sterling. I was your grandmother's attorney." The name hit me like a wave. "My grandmother," I stammered. He pulled a thick, cream-colored envelope from his jacket, sealed with wax. "She left instructions. I was to deliver this on the day your father publicly named his successor." He glanced toward the stage, where my father and Alara were still holding court. "It appears that day has come." My hands trembled as I took the envelope. "What is it?" "Her real will," he said quietly. "The one your father doesn't know exists. She said to tell you. On the day Arthur shows you exactly who he is, you'll be ready. Use what I gave you." He handed me his card. "Call me when you're ready." And then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. I fled to a quiet service corridor. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely break the seal. Inside, a legal document dated a year before she died. I forced my eyes to focus on the words. They swam, but I held them steady. "I, Cordelia Margaret Vance, being of sound mind, do hereby revoke all previous wills." And then the paragraph that stopped my heart. "To my granddaughter, Clara Ann Vance, I bequeath my entire 52% stake in Vance Holdings LLC, currently valued at approximately $52 million, along with all associated voting rights." I read it again. 52%, controlling interest. The document continued. "This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son Arthur's treatment of Clara. She has been systematically excluded, not due to a lack of ability, but due to a lack of vision. Clara was never slow. Clara was abandoned, and I will not allow my son's prejudice to define her future." A sob escaped me. She'd seen it all. Every slight, every dismissal. The document had a condition. "To activate this bequest, Clara must file a request for an emergency board meeting within 72 hours of receiving this document." 72 hours. The clock was ticking. I found Mr. Sterling by the coat check. "I need to call that meeting," I said, my voice raw. He simply nodded as if he'd expected nothing less. "Then we have work to do." That night in my tiny Queens apartment, I finally used the iron key. Inside the small safety deposit box it opened was a leather-bound journal, my grandmother's private diary, and a USB drive. The diary was filled with her thoughts, her fears. The USB drive contained a single file, audio recordings from a private board meeting 10 years ago. My father's voice was unmistakable. "My mother is 74. Her instincts are outdated. I'm proposing a resolution to reduce her voting control to a minority share for the good of the company." The motion had failed. but the proof of his betrayal was preserved in his own words. The next day, with Mr. Sterling's help, I started contacting board members. The first was Helen Marsh, a titan of industry and my grandmother's oldest friend. She didn't hesitate. "Cordelia told me everything before she passed. I've been waiting for your call, Clara. I'll sign the petition." Within hours, we had the 3 signatures needed. The emergency board meeting was set for May 18th, 10:00 a.m., the day after the engagement party. My father found out at 4:00 p.m. the following day. Alara called me, her voice a tight wire of fury. "What are you doing, Clara? Dad just got a notice about an emergency board meeting. What is this about?" I kept my voice calm. "Corporate governance, Alara. The same thing Dad has always claimed to value." She hung up. 30 minutes later, my father stormed past my cubicle without a glance, slamming his office door. Through the wall, I heard him on the phone. "Helen Marsh is behind it. Senility, probably. Don't worry about Clara. She can barely read a spreadsheet. She's not a threat." I smiled to myself. Being underestimated was my greatest advantage. May 18th, 9:45 a.m. The Vance Holdings boardroom, floor-to-ceiling views of the city, a long mahogany table. I stepped off the elevator in my borrowed blazer, clutching a folder. My sister was waiting. She looked perfect. "Clara, what are you doing here? This is a board meeting." "I know, I'm here to present something," she laughed. "Present what? How to properly sort the mail?" Before I could answer, my father appeared. "Clara, go back to your desk." His voice was ice. "Actually," Helen Marsh's voice rang out from the boardroom doorway, "I asked her to be here. She has a legal right to address this board." My father's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside. The 12 board members took their seats. I was directed to a chair at the far end, my father at the head, Alara to his right. The chairman called the meeting to order. Helen Marsh stood. "I've called this emergency session to address a matter of profound importance to this company's ownership. I yield my time to Clara Vance." I stood, my folder in front of me. My hands were steady. "Thank you, Ms. Marsh. I'm here to present a legal document that changes the ownership structure of Vance Holdings." My father interrupted with a heavy sigh. "Before we waste everyone's time, I need to provide context." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "My daughter Clara works in an administrative role. She has no business training, no financial background. She also has a learning disability that makes processing written information difficult." Alara chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "We've tried to support her, but some things just can't be fixed. We think this is her way of acting out after the news about my new role." The chairman held up a hand. "Mr. Vance, Ms. Vance has the floor. You will have your turn." My father sat down, shooting me a look that promised retribution. I pulled the document from my folder. "I'm not here to discuss my learning difference. I'm here to discuss this. The last will and testament of Cordelia Vance, dated November 12th, 2019, notarized and legally witnessed." My father's face went pale. "That's impossible. Her will was executed in 2015. "You have a copy of a previous will," I said, my voice clear and steady. "Under the law, a subsequent valid will revokes all prior ones. This will," I placed it on the table, "was executed 4 years later." I gestured to Philip Sterling, who had entered the room. "Mr. Sterling, will you please confirm the document's authenticity?" Mr. Sterling stepped forward. "I am Philip Sterling, partner at Sterling and Webb. I was Cordelia Vance's personal attorney for over 20 years. I can attest that this will was executed in my presence on November 12th, 2019, witnessed by 2 independent notaries." The chairman studied the document, his eyes widening. "This will bequeaths 52% of Vance Holdings shares." He looked up at me. "To you, Ms. Vance." The room erupted in murmurs. "This is a forgery," Alara snapped, her composure cracking. "I would caution against making unsubstantiated accusations of fraud, Ms. Vance," Mr. Sterling replied calmly. "The legal and reputational consequences could be severe." My father slammed his hand on the table. "This is absurd. My mother was manipulated in her final years." I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. "Was she? Perhaps you'd like to explain this." I held it up. "An audio recording from a private board meeting, November 2014. My grandmother recorded it. It was her right as a shareholder." I looked at the chairman. "With your permission, I'd like to play it for the board." He nodded. A few seconds of static, then my father's voice filled the room. "My mother is 74. Her instincts are outdated. I'm proposing a resolution to reduce her voting control to a minority share for the good of the company." The room went deathly silent. I let the recording play for another 30 seconds before stopping it. "My grandmother was not confused or manipulated," I said. "She was protecting herself from her own son, and she was protecting me. The will concludes with this. Clara was never slow. Clara was abandoned, and I will not allow her father's prejudice to continue after my death." I looked directly at my father. "You tried to strip her of her power, and she knew it. So she made sure the one person in this family who would never try to steal from her held the controlling stake." The silence that followed was absolute. The chairman removed his glasses. "Mr. Sterling, is this will legally binding and enforceable?" "It is," Sterling confirmed. "The 2015 will is superseded. As of this moment, Clara Vance is the majority shareholder of Vance Holdings." My father stared at his mother's portrait on the wall. He didn't move. Elara looked like she'd been slapped. The board's legal counsel spent the next hour on the phone, verifying the will with the courts and the bank. When he returned and whispered to the chairman's expression was one of quiet finality. "Ladies and gentlemen," the chairman announced, "our counsel has confirmed the will's validity. Effective immediately, Clara Vance holds 52% of Vance Holdings shares and all associated voting rights. As majority shareholder, she has the right to propose motions." He turned to me. "Ms. Vance, do you have any motions for the board?" I stood again. My father rose from his chair, his face gray. The chairman gestured for him to sit. He did. I looked at the 12 people who had just learned my true power. The power to fire my father was in my hands. I thought about my grandmother's lessons in the Gramercy Park townhouse, about justice, not revenge. "I have one motion," I said. "A vote of confidence in the current CEO, Arthur Vance. The board will decide if he retains their confidence. If the majority votes no confidence, he will resign. If they vote confidence, I will not use my majority to interfere with daily operations." Elara stood. "This is a circus, a manipulation." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "This is how governance works. It's the system Grandma Cordelia built." The vote was called. 4 hands went up for my father. 7 hands went up against. 1 abstained. The motion carried. No confidence. My father looked at me, not with rage, but with a hollow, dawning recognition. The kind of look a man has when he realizes he's spent a lifetime fighting the wrong war. He walked out of the boardroom without a word. Revenge is a cage. Justice is a key. In the hallway, my mother was waiting. Her face was tear-streaked. "Clara, how could you?" she whispered. "How could I?" I repeated. "You spent 27 years making me feel like nothing. Grandma Cordelia spent her final years making sure I knew my worth. That's the difference." I walked to the elevator. This time, I wasn't running away. I was walking toward my own life. My father resigned 2 days later. The news hit the business journals within a week. "Vance Holdings shakeup. Founder's granddaughter takes control after secret will surfaces." Most of the social invitations to my parents' circle simply stopped. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't mourn either. Helen Marsh called me that weekend. "You handled that with more grace than most people 3 times your age. Your grandmother would be proud." "She taught me that mercy isn't weakness," I said. "It's a choice." 3 weeks later, my mother asked to meet. We sat in a quiet cafe in Midtown. She looked smaller, diminished. "I'm sorry, Clara," she said, her voice cracking, "for everything, for not defending you, for being too weak to stand up to your father." I looked at the woman who had raised me, and for the first time I saw her not as a mother but as a person, flawed and frightened. "I can't pretend the past didn't happen," I said, "but I'm willing to build something new, something honest." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door left slightly ajar. 2 months later, Elara called me. We met in Central Park. She looked different. The armor was gone. "I've been in therapy," she said. "I see it now, the golden child thing. It's a different kind of prison. I'm sorry I never defended you. I was too scared of losing my place." We sat in silence for a long time. "I can't go back," I said, "but I don't want to be enemies. Let's start from here." Today, I live in a small apartment in Brooklyn Heights. My salary as Director of Community Development at Vance Holdings is one I could never have imagined. It's a new division, focused on the kind of ethical, community-centered projects my grandmother would have championed. My father and I speak occasionally. It's polite, distant. My mother and I have lunch once a month. It's awkward, but it's real. Alara and I are learning who we are as sisters for the first time. On my wall, I have a framed photo of my grandmother at her first storefront in 1962. Sometimes, when the light hits it just right, I think she's smiling. She didn't give me the shares because I was the favorite. She gave them to me because she knew I'd understand that power is a responsibility, not a reward. She saw that my so-called weakness was just a different kind of strength. The ability to see the whole picture, to feel the weight of every decision, to value people over performance. My parents measured worth by achievements. My grandmother measured it by character. And now, finally, I measure my own worth. Not by their old, broken ruler, but by the one she gave me. The one that measures the depth of your sight, not the speed of your reading. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the dismissed one, the one they said would never amount to anything, I need you to hear this. Your value isn't determined by the people who failed to see it. You don't need a secret inheritance to prove your worth. You just need to give yourself permission to stop seeking approval from people who will never give it. The people who underestimate you are giving you the greatest gift, the element of surprise. Set your own standard. Measure by your own truth. That's the real inheritance, and no one can ever take it away. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that your story isn't over, please subscribe to Winds of Thought. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And leave a comment. I read them. Tell me about a time you had to prove your own worth. Let's start a conversation. Thank you for listening.